Hi, my name's Evan Baltz, and I'm a marketing technology leader and a team builder. Today, we're going to talk about leadership and how leaders must listen. It's the second part in my series on managerial tips. Great leaders must listen. You probably know a lot of leaders who like to talk a lot. They like to hear themselves talk, they like to tell people what to do. But you've heard it before. You have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Listening is the key communication piece to understanding problems and, more importantly, understanding people. A manager isn't someone who just talks and tells and coaches. A good manager is someone who listens. And you can't be a good manager if you don't know how to listen. I put together some keys for what it means to be a good listener. The first, and I think it's the most important, is make sure you create an environment where every person is free to speak their mind, truly. No judging, no punishing people for their thoughts or opinions. And you have to tell each person how important it is that their input is needed for you as a leader to make good decisions. But you have to create that environment where they feel like they can actually speak their mind and it's not going to be used against them in your annual review or something. You have to make it totally clear to them that this is a space where you can talk openly. I used to tell my people that we can talk about anything in this environment. Say it's a one-on-one. We can talk about anything. And whatever you say, it stays here. If it's a complaint, we'll talk about it and then we'll come up with two things. Either we're going to figure out some steps to address that complaint, or we're just going to have to turn the page. There are some things that we can't change, and helping them to understand that and where that line is. But you can't get there unless you listen. You need to ask follow-up questions as well. That's the second point. If someone is being over specific, and this is something that happens a lot, you're talking about a particular subject and, well, this person said this and then they did this and then they emailed me that, and here's a screen cap of the entire conversation that we had over the last 6 months. That's too specific. You need to kind of elevate them to 20,000 feet and say, but what's behind that? What about that is concerning you? What is the issue there that is causing you a problem or causing you a concern? You have to get to that. The rest are just symptomatic, right? Every email and every meeting and things that they say, those are symptoms of something that's bigger. And you need to help your employees get to that point where they understand what's the root cause of that. And again, sometimes you can do something about it. Maybe it's addressing it specifically to that person. Maybe it's talking about it more generally as a team, but getting to the crux of the matter is what's critical there. You can't do that unless you stop talking and just listen. So ask follow-up questions. Tell them their feedback is valuable again. A third one is actually considering what they're saying, right? And this goes back to the thing that we talked about last time in terms of authenticity. You can listen and say, okay, tell me, I'm listening. But in your mind, you're going through all of the things that you want to say back to them. You're thinking about how you're going to respond. You're not really paying attention. You're just pretending to listen. You're saying follow-up questions, like I said last time, from a guidebook on asking follow-up questions rather than just really listening to them, sometimes feeding back what it is that they're saying, but getting to the heart of the matter. They may be discussing something that's difficult for you to understand. Maybe it's something about you and your way of approaching something. I don't like how you had us do this project for 6 months that was worthless. Get to the heart of that and then start to talk about what is the issue at hand. But consider they could be right. And I found in more cases than not, they are right and they do have a valid point. And you have to make sure to assure them that whatever they say, it is important and that feedback is going to be helpful. What you can't do then is just ignore it. If they say, hey, I believe it's important that we take these next steps when we do a launch of a major project, you better do it. Don't just dismiss it, or worse yet, say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea, and then never talk about it again, or not change what it is that you're actually doing. What they say can sharpen your understanding of them and the problems that you might be facing. Another major point is to keep their confidence. The last thing that you want to do is promise them that what they're saying is just between the two of you, and then tell every other team member or tell your supervisor or say it in a team meeting. You have to let them know that what they say is for the two of you. Give them that freedom to do that. And maybe it's to be super critical sometimes, and that's okay. Say it's okay if you're really critical of a person or a project or whatever it is. I want to hear about it. And then we decide how we're going to move forward. And listening and also sharing your thoughts about it are critical as well. If you come off as a person who either has all the answers, or you come off as someone who's just listening to for the pretend sake of it, and you're not really going to apply any of these things, they will smell that out eventually. They'll know that you're not really there to really listen and do what they say or consider what their concerns are. And that has to be done every single time. It's not just, hey, once a month I'm going to listen. The rest of the time you're going to listen to me talk. That has to be consistent over the course of your interactions with them, and be the same person and listen in a meeting as well. And another point is in meetings, listening in meetings. You've probably known leaders who start off a meeting, they go for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, telling you everything that they know about this subject or that subject, and they never give you a chance to respond. One of my rules of thumb is wait until the end of the meeting. Listen to what everybody has to say. Really listen to it and watch their body language. It's a little bit harder in this setting, like in a Zoom meeting or something, to get body language, but you still can. You can catch people smiling. You can catch people frowning. You can catch people rolling their eyes. Uh, One big tip is when they turn their camera off, they probably realize that they don't have a very good poker face. They might turn their camera off, or they're bored at the person who's talking. They've gone on too long, something like that. Read that body language as well as listening to what they say. So when someone else is talking, I read their body language, but then I look around the rest of the room or around the Zoom meeting and see how people are responding. I listen to their suggestions. If I have a thought, let's say I think we should only launch projects on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I could come off and start the meeting. Hey, everybody, I've decided we're only going to launch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. A better way to approach that is let's talk about the launch process. Let everybody share their opinion. If someone on the team says, I think we should launch on Tuesdays and Thursdays, take that in and then assure them that's a great idea. Let's come back to that. And then at the end of the meeting, say, hey, I liked the comment that was made earlier about only launching on Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's a lot of good possibilities in doing that. What does everyone else think about that? That supports and encourages that person, and it makes them know that you were listening to them and you took their suggestion. You don't have to take credit for it. Give the credit to somebody else, especially asking those people who may be more introverted, someone who may be more shy or less likely to share their opinion. Ask them specifically about that. Hey, tell me, what do you think of that suggestion? It's not necessarily putting them on the spot, it's giving them an opportunity to share. And then don't jump in if they don't say anything, give them a chance to collect their thoughts. You can hear some really great advice, especially from introverts. Acknowledge when you hear something good. And that's what I was just hinting at. When you hear something good, affirm that statement. Someone makes a good suggestion. Hey, I really like John's comment there. Hey, what Karen said was really an effective means of doing our next project. Let's follow that. Make sure that you acknowledge good statements, and then admit that you can learn from your team or other people within your department. Admit that you can learn from them. You know what? I didn't think about that. That's a really good suggestion. And I can't believe that that was something that I missed. Thanks for pointing that out. That's a really good way to proceed. And listen to each person equally. Sometimes there are people who kind of soak up all the oxygen in a room or in a meeting. They're always talking. Don't always give them all of the attention. They may say 95% of the words in the meeting. Don't give them 95% of the attention. Make sure that every person is heard and that you give them the same attention. Otherwise, you play into the loudest person gets their way kind of approach. Listen to the quiet people, especially, and then implement their ideas. Don't take ideas and listen to other people's thoughts and ideas and then just do your own thing. It'll come back around and they'll say, "Hey, what about that idea that we talked about last week? Whatever happened to that?" Yeah, I decided after all, I didn't like that. This is not the great way to build trust among your team. Listen and implement their ideas and keep them updated on what's happening. Don't just be a vacuum for information. Share back down to them. Hey, I shared that with the senior leadership and they think it's an excellent idea. I made sure to give you credit and let them know that that was an idea that you brought up in a meeting that we had. Next time, we will talk about accountability and what is critically important about holding others accountable. If you like this podcast, you can read these articles on LinkedIn, or you can go back and read other articles that I've written on my LinkedIn posts. But I hope that you'll follow. If you have any comments or questions about this topic, be sure to leave them in the comments section and I'll respond to them. Thanks.